This month on Focus Black Oklahoma, join us as we learn about freedmen exclusion from hunting and fishing on tribal lands.
Discuss Tulsa's Food Not Bombs protest that ended in arrests.
Hear a segment of our special episode, Mental Health on the Margins.
Highlight the activism and artistry of Ghana's Rocky Dawuni.
Listen to 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre survivor Mother Leslie Benningfield Randall testify before the House Judiciary Committee.
And find out if Sandra Slade made it back home in her son's less than road-ready vehicle.
All this and more on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Focus Black Oklahoma is sponsored by the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, offering a master's degree in social justice online and in person. Learn more at wherefaithleads.com.
This is Focus Black Oklahoma. I'm Dr. Autumn Brown.
And I'm Jacob Littlebear.
A recent court ruling affirming tribal authority over hunting and fishing rights on reservation lands has renewed conversations about sovereignty, citizenship, and belonging. It has also raised concerns among freedmen descendants who remain excluded from certain tribal rights and benefits, including hunting and fishing privileges in some nations. FBO correspondent Dion Osborne explores what justice looks like for descendants of formerly enslaved people who were once part of tribal communities.
A tribal leader who once faced discrimination in her own tribe says the Seminole Nation Council is adopting an ordinance that bans freedmen from hunting and fishing on Seminole Nation reservation land. In March, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Cherokee Nation, Chickasaw Nation, and Choctaw Nation against Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt after he sued against their right to hunt and fish on reservation land without state permits. The ruling applies to reservation land of any tribe in Oklahoma and temporarily upholds tribal sovereignty as the case continues at the federal level. But a recent ordinance pushed forward by the Seminole Nation Council in May has drawn criticism from members of its own tribe.
They do everything and to discriminate against us, and we do everything we can to try to get this tribe to come together, and that's what we're doing, just trying to bring the tribe together, not trying to tear it apart.
That's the voice of Lietta Osborne Sampson. She's a Seminole Nation councilwoman and freedman descendant who hails from the Bruner Band. She says a new ordinance at the tribal council would effectively ban freedmen from any of the 5 tribes from hunting or fishing on Seminole Nation land.
And at this point, we were giving the hunting and fishing in May. And then when the new chief come in December, she removes it. And we're their citizens. They're saying that that's a difference between citizen and member.
Osborne Sampson told Focus Black Oklahoma the new ordinance reinforces a second-class status for freedmen descendants. They're federally recognized as members of the tribe, but receive limited access to rights within the Seminole Nation. They carry cards that say voting members only.
They're thinking that we're going to be very quiet about this. And I'm not trying to start nothing. We shouldn't have to start anything to belong. Something that you belong to. You can't wash some things off. If you got a birthmark, it's a birthmark.
She made headlines during the COVID pandemic in 2021 when she was denied access to vaccines due to her status as a freedman descendant, according to the Associated Press. She described being aggressively told to leave a health clinic. It occurred at a time when people in her community were dying at higher rates than the national average.
I said, let me get out of here before I get in trouble. And they ain't got no problem with putting you in jail. So I drove on out of the building. I told him he didn't have to walk me out. I know where I'm going, and I was very upset. And I started calling Channel 4, 5, and 9, letting them know what they had just done to me. They refused to give me a shot. They refused to even talk to us. They wanted us off the property. I mean, she stomped her foot and pointed at the door like I was a puppy.
A freedman descendant is a person of African descent whose ancestors were once enslaved by the Seminole Nation or the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, or Muskogee Creek nations. A series of treaties in 1866 between these tribal nations and the U.S. government promised an end to chattel slavery and equal citizenship rights for all descendants. But tribal councilwoman Osborne Sampson says freedmen in the Seminole Nation continue to struggle with what they consider second-class citizenship.
A lot of people don't understand the way Seminole Nation is doing this. Even I don't understand, because even in our Constitution, it says by blood and by body. They're members by blood. We're members by body. You can't separate either one of those. So those things are in our Constitution.
The Seminole Nation did not return multiple calls requesting comment. On Thursday, June 11th, a secretary at one point answered the phone and offered to arrange an email exchange, but no email was sent. This story will be updated if a comment is received. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Dion Osborne in Tulsa.
A recent protest organized by Tulsa's chapter of Food Not Bombs has sparked renewed debate about free speech and public demonstration. What began as a public action focused on the issue of hunger ended with multiple arrests and citations issued to participants. What happened that day, and what does it reveal about the relationship between local government, law enforcement, and grassroots activism? FBO's Aristotle Orsini has the story.
On May 6th, the Tulsa Police Department and Tulsa Sheriff's Department shut down and made arrests at a protest distributing food to Tulsa's homeless communities. The protest, organized by Tulsa's chapter of Food Not Bombs, takes place each week in downtown Tulsa. Food Not Bombs is a global organization with more than 1,000 chapters across 60 different countries that espouses an anti-war message while providing food to the hungry. Just a week after the incident, FNB posted a video showing the details of the arrests. They occurred just as the night's protest was coming to a close. Tulsa Police Department's Lieutenant Justin Oxford approached the protest and told them to stop what they were doing. In an effort to comply, a protester walked past him carrying a tub of supplies to return them to a nearby car. In response, Lieutenant Oxford grabbed her by the arm and arrested her. Another man standing behind Lieutenant Oxford can be heard asking the officer, "What are you doing?" And then he too is arrested.
What is happening? Protesting?
A total of 4 people were arrested and 6 were issued citations. FNB was able to use funds donated expressly for legal support to make bail for the protesters, but litigation is still underway. According to a statement released by FNB, the city of Tulsa claims the protests are held illegally as they do not have a special events permit. However, FNB contends that their protest is protected by the First Amendment. FNB has operated in Tulsa since 2020 and until May 6th has never faced legal consequences from the city. In screenshots posted to social media, FNB shares the most recent communication they had with the city before May 6th, which was in July of 2025. During this communication, FNB asserted their constitutional right to assembly, to which the city did not respond. On May 27th, I attended FNB's weekly protest to learn more about the arrests. When I arrived, I was introduced to Mom, one of the 4 protesters who had been arrested on the 5th. He told me he'd been volunteering with FNB for nearly 2 years. When asked if he had ever seen police present at one of their protests,
Never. No, and they've never come and gotten out and said, you can't be here, you know? Yeah. They come through, like we're close to downtown, we're close to David L. Moss, we're close to services. So it's not weird that they would be around the area. And so seeing them is normal.
he said he could tell as soon as the police arrived that they were planning on making arrests.
And I knew that from the get-go, the way they seemed to be posturing about it. That being said, I'm allowed to be here. We're allowed to be here, and this community here relies on us, So and we're happy to do it. So it's,
Mom introduced me to a community member named Butch and his family. Butch has been homeless since 2020 when he was kicked out of his house with only 2 days' notice.
Got our rent paid. 2 weeks after we paid our rent, this guy knocks on the door and showed us the deed to the trailer. So told us, and this is on a Friday, he says, y'all need to be up out of here by Monday morning. I'm moving in myself. And there was nothing we could do. He sold the trailer out from under it, and this is when COVID broke out.
Butch and his family first came into contact with FNB just a few months ago when their truck was parked in the spot the protesters usually use to set up tables for hot food, water, tent, clothing, and more. He says that the members of FNB were immediately kind and helpful, and Mom in particular has gone out of his way to help Butch and his family.
What these folks here are doing, and what John's doing personally for me and my family, you know, I love these people, man. These people, what they're doing is nothing wrong. You know, and I feel that the Sheriff's Department or Tulsa PD, not really Sheriff's Department, but Tulsa PD needs to leave them be and not mess with them, you know. If they were doing something majorly wrong, if they were out here, you know, and violence was breaking out, you know, but violence ain't breaking out. All they're doing is helping people eat.
Since that first encounter with FNB, Butch and his family have returned nearly every week to receive the food, water, and support they can't afford and that no one else is offering.
For the most part, what you see is what people do here. They come here, they get the resources that they need, they go back in their camps and do whatever, you know. And I think this way, what these folks are doing, I appreciate it. It's a good thing. You know, helps people like me who can't work. See, I can't get a job. I have seizures. And nobody wants to hire me because I am a liability because I have to take my dog with me everywhere I go. Tell me a job that's going to hire me with my dog there. Especially when I'm somebody who has done home improvements all my life. That's all I know. You know, so for me to get a job, I get discriminated against. They don't do it to let it be known, but I do get discriminated against for having a dog, you know, because I do have a disability. But I can't get a disability check because the disability says I'm capable of working. Go figure.
Mom told me that the reason Butch and his family discovered FNB in the first place is because his truck had broken down in their protest area. Mom offered Butch a place to leave his truck while it was out of commission and put out a request for support to get it fixed.
So I just hit up, you know, friends and social media and said, hey, mutual aid request for some folks in need. And, you know, a lot of people came through, so we raised about $1,000. And it's just tough because, like, once they get it fixed, too, it doesn't, you know, it's not a place to live. But right now, they're walking everywhere. They walk to the library to charge their stuff. They walk somewhere else to get services. They walk to us on Wednesdays to get food and blankets, water, whatever. So hopefully the truck can help. We see a lot of folks show up in cars, and there's folks that come here that are housed, right? But they're all, this is a place to receive services. So, you know, some people just show up one time because, like, that week they need some food, they need some extra, you know, supplies. And that's the thing is, like, that's the kind of, you know, misconception I think that a lot of people hopefully talk about is, like, it's not just unhoused people come out here, it's just people that need support, and we're just another, you know, folks that do it, but we do it with no questions asked.
What I find truly fascinating is how FNB runs. They operate without any form of centralized leadership. Members who have been part of the organization for longer and have deeper ties to the community are naturally able to be leaned on for guidance and support, but everyone has equal power. They operate as a collective, making decisions for the group as a group. In spite of this non-traditional structure, FNB has managed to feed the homeless communities of Tulsa every Wednesday, no matter what, since 2020.
I mean, I'll tell you what, this chapter is no joke. Like, it's probably some of the most organized and, like, some of the most just driven. This is a group of folks that come together to support community and utilize their strengths and their time and privilege to show up and do this every single week. So for me, it's just like, they're all my heroes.
Organizing one of these protests is no small feat either. Just a single week means purchasing, preparing, and serving hundreds of meals to ensure there is enough food for the ever-growing number of community members who rely on them. In March, the protests served a record number of meals, giving out food to 417 people in just one night. FNB keeps close track of how many people they feed each week and what supplies were needed the most to analyze trends and ensure they never run out of food during a protest. Organizing their protest means having blankets, tarps, tents, sleeping bags, clothes, and hygiene supplies. It means leaning on protesters with trucks, like Mom, to transport tables and other large items to the protest. It means having a trash crew to patrol the area in and around the protest to ensure the street is left better than they found it. FNB found themselves splitting these burdens across what are essentially committees. There's a group of people who are dedicated to working with food, a group who handles trash, a group who handles tents. Beyond that, individuals contribute what they can, and every single thing is paid for through communal support. Every dollar contributed to FNB goes directly to feeding, clothing, and supporting the Tulsa community. Conflict with the city puts their work at risk. Food Not Bombs saw significantly decreased attendance at their first sharing after May 6th.
People are afraid to come to a place that they've been going to receive resources.
While FNB has continued their protest without incident, protesters still face a legal battle against the city's charges. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Aristotle Orsini reporting from Tulsa.
You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma. What does it mean to live in a place that was never meant to feel like home? Across the country, extended stay hotels have become a last resort for individuals and families navigating housing instability. Behind those doors are stories often overlooked of stress, isolation, resilience, and the quiet toll that instability takes on mental health. For those living on the margins, where access to care is limited and community can feel out of reach, how do people cope? And what support truly exists? Here's FBO's Nick Alexandrov.
I spoke with the man for about 10 minutes. He might have been talking about Oklahoma history. I think I heard him mention the Tulsa Race Massacre. I watched his mouth form words like cover-up and atrocity through a thick mustache. Nobody knows about this. No one is talking about this. He told me that again and again. Hidden histories.
When I started, I thought it was an awareness issue because I wasn't aware of it.
Stephanie Gonzalez Guitar is a sociologist. She studies families living in extended stay motels in Florida.
Since then, we've had, New York Times stories. People have written books about this. I saw, you see it on CNN. It's been on mainstream media. It's on the local media. People know that people are living in motels. And so that's not the issue anymore. Now it just seems like structural change just needs to happen. It's a policy issue now. That's what I landed on.
A system failure that plays out in familiar ways. In Oklahoma, Black residents make up about 8% of the population, but 22% of people experiencing homelessness. Stephanie Gonzalez Guitar again.
If you're living in the room for 28 days, then you can be considered a resident, so a lot of them would be asked to move rooms so that they would reset the clock. Otherwise, they would have to formally evict them.
In other words, move people before the law recognizes them as tenants. There's a line between a motel guest and a tenant, but it's blurred. Oklahoma law says transient occupancy in a motel is not covered by landlord-tenant protections. The law doesn't clearly define when someone stops being a transient occupant and becomes a tenant. People can live at the motel, but they can't belong. It's a legal void. I can't report from a void. Not in 3 days. I need to go somewhere else. After a few days walking Admiral, I thought I might understand the place better from a distance. I built a spreadsheet, all the cheap motels along the interstate, every business on Admiral Place from Sheridan to Memorial. I looked up the owners, LLCs in Texas, family trusts in Arkansas, California. They live somewhere else. Maybe Admiral Place is a business model. Maybe it feels in between, a place only to pass through because the money flows out of it. A payoff for people far away. I tried to prove it, but the ownership trails vanished. I couldn't follow them. In Tulsa, the most recent point-in-time count identified about 1,400 people experiencing homelessness.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development requires cities that receive federal funding for homeless services to conduct a point-in-time count. The count takes place during a night in January and includes all people experiencing homelessness, whether sheltered or unsheltered.
This is Stephanie Gonzalez-Guitar again, the Florida sociologist.
It's a hard population to reach.
Sabina Brown is the Housing Senior Policy Analyst with the Oklahoma Policy Institute.
I think it's really uncomfortable for folks to think that they're closer to homelessness than they might think. Most people are one missed paycheck, one disaster away from eviction or homelessness. It's much more uncomfortable to think that it could happen to any of us and that this is really a system failure.
This Quick Hit is a segment from a special episode of Focus Black Oklahoma, which is part of a larger quarterly effort from Oklahoma media addressing mental health. Find the rest of the quarterly stories and more coverage from Tulsa Flyer, the Oklahoma Eagle, KOSU, La Semana, and The Frontier at tulsaflyer.org.
Each year, Tulsa pauses to remember one of the darkest chapters in U.S. history, the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Today, that memory rests largely in the voice of one woman, Mother Leslie Benningfield Randall, the last known living survivor. Mother Randall has become a powerful advocate, testifying before the House Judiciary Committee on May 19, 2021, sharing her experiences and calling attention to the lasting impact of the massacre more than a century after it occurred. Her testimony serves as both a personal account and a national challenge to remember, reckon with, and pursue justice.
I survived the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, and I have survived 100 years of painful memories and losses. By the grace of God, I am still here. I have survived. I have survived to tell this story. I believe that I am still here to share it with you. Hopefully, now you all will listen to us while we are still here. The white people who did this to us were filled with so much hate. It is disgusting that they hate us that they hate us for no reason except that we are Black people. We know most of the people who committed these acts and died are dead now. The three of us here today are the only ones left that we know of. But just because these men are probably dead, the city and county of Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, and the Tulsa Chamber are still responsible for making it right, because it was they who caused the massacre, and it's continued. The chamber helped ensure that we could not rebuild after the massacre, including holding us in intimate camps. They owe us something. They owe me something. I have lived much of my life for my opportunities. My opportunities were taken from me. Taken from me and my community. North Tulsa, Black Tulsa is still messed up today. They didn't rebuild it. They sure did. It's empty. It's a ghetto. They have raised more than $30 million and have refused to share any with me or the other two survivors. They have used my name to further their fundraising goals without my permission. Now that's a crime, and misrepresented my support of their upcoming continuing events focused on making Tulsa look good and not justice. You can help us get some justice. America is still full of examples where people in positions of power, many just like you, have told us to wait. Others have told us it's too late. It seems like justice in America is always so slow or not possible for Black people. And we are made to feel crazy just for asking for things to be made right. There are always so many excuses for why justice is so slow or never happened at all.
You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma. Would you like to pitch a story to FBO?
Or work with us as a correspondent?
Please email us at contact@focusblackoklahoma.com.
Or call 918-807-3886. Music can entertain, inspire, and spark change. And few artists embody that power more than Rocky Dawuni. Born in Ghana and celebrated around the world, Dawuni blends Afro roots music, reggae, and global influences to create songs that promote unity, social justice, and cultural understanding. Zakira Muhammad profiles the artist, activist, and United Nations ambassador behind the music, exploring how his sound bridges continents and how his message continues to resonate with audiences across the globe.
The busy streets are empty. Now we're panic buying bread from every shelf. Social media is in a frenzy for an enemy that nobody can see. We must go through.
Music has served not just as a source of entertainment, but an opportunity to examine how it shapes culture, community, and identity. Those themes were at the center of a recent conversation at NYU Accra featuring Ghanaian Afro-roots music artist turned United Nations Goodwill Ambassador, Vaki Dawuni. Dawuni spoke with students about how he went from partially fulfilling his father's dream of becoming a military general to being the general of his own foundation that blends music, storytelling, and youth empowerment. Vaki's father, Koyati Dawuni, came from royalty, the kind that doesn't inherit thrones. The son of a traditional chief in northern Ghana, Vaki Dawuni was not in line for power, so he did what many young men from the north did. He joined the army. Vaki was stationed at a military camp in Tema on Ghana's coast. It was there, inside the order and noise of the barracks life, that his love for music was born, surrounded by soldiers speaking every language Ghana had to offer.
My father was the last born of an indigenous traditional chief, a Konkoba chief from a town called Bumbong in the northern region. I was born into an environment of discipline, soldiers, a very diverse and plural environment because the Ghanaian military was kind of a collection of various tribes.
From the beginning, Dawuni was taking notes, not the kind you write, the kind you hear. By the age of 5, he had developed an analytical mind for music. He didn't just listen to songs, he dissected them.
I recognized that probably around the age of 5, that I was always drawn to music. I could feel music in nature. I could feel music in people. I could feel music in my environment.
In Ghana in the 1980s, the military wasn't just guarding borders. It was debating the soul of a nation. Soldiers talked about citizenship, building a nation, and what it meant to build something together. For a young boy with musician's ears, all of it was material.
Here I was, a child who was drawn to music, who was drawn to the power of music to tell stories in an environment where the soldiers were not only talking about national defense, but were talking about development. They were talking about how to nation building. They were talking about how to create community. I started feeling like all of this was fodder for me to really be able to articulate the Ghanaian story.
Vaki Dawuni's parents had the dream for their children to rise through the ranks and become officers and eventually become generals. Dawuni respected the dream, yet quietly and patiently discovered reggae music and filled notebooks with original songs.
Most of the time, my parents were looking at all of us. The highest point was, you are going to be a general. You're going to go to the best schools, and you'll be a general because I'm not a general, so you are going to be that guy. But here I was, I wanted to be a general of something else.
He traced that conviction back to a single image, a record album cover he'd seen as a teenager at a neighbor's house. An artist with braids, stars on the sleeve, titled Hotter Than July. Decades later, he got to share the stage with Stevie Wonder.
I said to myself, I want to be a musician and work that one day I'll have the opportunity of meeting this man. I always say that in my artistic journey, I have been privileged to be a child who was able to see my career rise from the borders of Ghana, despite all the challenges, and ultimately, at one point, on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl, one of the biggest venues in the world. And it dawned on me that it started with my admiration, and here I was with Stevie Wonder. So it shows that the biggest dream starts with the biggest intention.
Every day, in every way, oh
As a young adult, his dad said he needed to pay his own way if he was going to be a musician. To make ends meet, he started a vegetable business and planted cabbages on the family land in Koforidua, selling to hotels, saving every CD, funding a band that he built himself.
I'm going to buy my first guitar. I started a cabbage business, started distributing to hotels, started making money, planning my band.
It was his older brother, Chief Uba Wumbe Dawuni, who finally convinced him to go to college. His brother said to him,
all of these guys don't live in Koforidua. They hardly come here. And if they come and play, you won't get opportunity to see them. But if you come to Legon, you get the opportunity of meeting all of this. So maybe school might actually be the opportunity for you to jumpstart.
He arrived at the University of Ghana in Legon in 1991 with a handwritten album, a head full of songs, and a demo that was truly that, a demo.
I don't want to even talk about the demo, because the demo was literally me singing and one of my friends humming the bass line and humming the drum. That's my demo from Koforidua. That's the Koforidua version of my demo.
Within weeks of arriving on campus, he found his bandmates. They called themselves Local Crisis. They recorded their first tape. And within 48 hours, in what we now call going viral, every student at the University of Ghana was talking about them. But a university campus was not enough. There was a major national concert happening at the Trade Fair Center in Accra. They had no booking, no invitation, and no plan except to show up.
We had never been booked for a show. We're just a university band. And we heard that the concert was coming. We're like, we need to play on it. So on the day of the show, we took our instruments and everything, and we marched straight to the Trade Fair Center.
The promoter put them on last, after the headliners, and the crowd was already heading for the exits.
We rolled into the first song, and that was history. Immediately the first song started playing. All the people who were moving towards the entrance paused. There was a pause, and then all of a sudden people started moving back in reverse. And by the time we got into the second and third song, the whole place was full.
He describes his music as his purpose in life.
Music is for me a calling, and I'm glad that I always answer that calling. I had a deeper understanding of what I wanted to do. And then my environment too at that time started to become a means to formulate my initial character as to what I felt was my calling to utilize my music for. And when I hear words like healing, for me, that means that is my Grammy. I believe deeply in God, and I am a man of faith, and I believe that my music was not necessarily given to me as a tool for just to uphold my ego, but also a tool for healing.
Success, when it came, did not slow Dawuni down. He received an opportunity to work at college radio stations across the United States. He licensed music to Atlantic Records. He built his own record label called Aquarian Records. He was involved in initiating the first medication donation to Ghana's AIDS Commission through his UN advocacy in partnership with Bono's Project Red. It gave him a platform and a question he couldn't stop asking. What is this platform for? He speaks about African unity and about what is at stake if it doesn't happen.
And I believe that the inoculation against that is for us to all work towards that unity, because I believe that that unity, as much as it looks like it's a dream of our ancestors, I believe that our ancestors saw us as the generation that is going to be able to manifest that.
Dawuni is working with a belief, the same one he has carried since the age of 5 years old.
I always believe that serving your country is a responsibility of everybody. You have to go out there and be worthy ambassadors of your country. I'm a living testament of perceiving your dream, and your dream being driven by a selfless conviction and the dream manifests before your eyes if you believe in it enough and you trust in it enough.
Everybody saying, everybody singing, everybody rising. The champion arise, we shall win. The champion arise.
For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Zakir Mohammed in Accra, Ghana.
Champion arise, we shall win. Let another spiritual war begin. Yet another spiritual warfare.
Thanks for joining us on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Fight on. Here we come.
Sometimes love looks less like grand gestures and more like a long drive down the highway. When her son needed to move between Texas and Tulsa, one mother didn't hesitate, even though the car making the journey was far from road ready. Armed with determination, patience, and a mother's unwavering commitment, Sandra Slade took on the challenge to help her son reach his next chapter.
My dad was a great man who loved cars. He started the first classic car club for black men in Tulsa in 1985. He would work all day, start dinner, then go out to his sanctuary, his garage. If my homework was finished, I could go out with him and learn or just listen to his conversations. Fast forward, my son loves to tinker on machines, robots, computers, and occasionally his 2000 Chevy Trailblazer. But now, he is super hyped and ready to get his new car. I am glad for him because I don't have to pay for it and he's getting what he wants. I can hear the joy in his voice as he talks about his new vehicle purchase, how he has saved up, looked at options, did market research, and test drives. You would think that he worked for Consumer Reports the way he talks about this car. He decided not to take the Blazer to his new city of residence and was going to leave it at his old apartment for me to come down and get. I made arrangements to go get it. I was upset that he didn't let me know in advance of him moving so I could get the car before he moved. But I forgave him because of all the moving in preparation he forgot. But my son is great and sent me money for my plane ticket, Uber, and gas to take the car back. The flight left at 6:30 a.m., so I got to the airport at 5 a.m., and I'm feeling I've raised a great young man. I get down to Dallas on a very crowded plane, the kind where you wish you would have packed your mask and prayed that you took all your vitamins. Luckily, I got a window seat, and a mother and daughter sat next to me. This flight was super early at 6:30 in the morning. I settled in my seat, put my pillow around my neck just as we took off. But then the conversation started. The mother and daughter were talking about their upcoming trip in every detail. I only brought my small earplugs, but they were saving me from this Little House on the Prairie episode. Occasionally, the conversation got loud enough that I could hear it in and out of my sleep. I get to the Dallas airport, and as I'm walking, I start looking between Lyft and Uber to see who has the cheapest ride to his apartment complex. Because it's prime time in Dallas at 7:45 a.m., the rates are between $60 to $80. And I'm looking like, wow, maybe the bus is an option. Never rode the bus in Dallas, and I'm thinking I didn't want to do that early in the morning. I decided on a shared Uber. I had just been on a plane with others. How bad could it be? It was only a 20-minute ride, and it was the cheapest rate at $40. I click the button and wait for the Uber. Larry, a nice gentleman, shows up, and I get in the Uber. He said this was his first shared Uber, and I said mine too. He laughed, and he said he saw my name Sandra and that I was black, and he said I must be cool. We laughed and talked about his kids and where he and his wife wanted to go for a vacation, an all-around pleasant ride, and no one else elected to share the Uber. When we got to the car, he told me he would wait to make sure the car would start. That would be a shame if it didn't. It had just started to sprinkle a bit, so I got busy in the car making sure where the lights were and looking around for the phone charger that was connected to the cigarette lighter. Noticing that there was not a phone charger connected, I called my son and asked him where was it. He said, "Oh yeah, I had it." I said, why wouldn't you leave it because you weren't going to drive this car? He asked me, well, why don't you just go to the Best Buy and get one? I reminded him how early it was, and that was not possible. I told Larry that the car started and I was good. Larry waved and pulled off. I was ready to go. I figured I would have limited time on my phone till I could get a charger. As I pulled out, it was still lightly raining, and I turned on the windshield wipers. As I turned them on, I heard the as a wiper scraped across the window, sounding like gears grinding. I saw that the wipers didn't even have blades, and the area that was in my eyesight was really messed up. I could barely see. Again, I contacted my son. He said, "Oh yeah, I meant to get some of those, but it hadn't been raining." I just hung up because I was now in Dallas morning traffic, trying to navigate and get to a good gas station. And the gas needle was sitting on half, and I figured I needed to fill it up. I didn't want to take a chance on driving all the way to Buc-ee's, the favorite spot. I settled on finding a QT since it was recognizable for me as well as a gas tank. I put $55 in the tank and felt satisfied that the needle was full and proceeded home. It's raining, but not so hard, and I'm coasting. I realize I need to get over a lane and start looking around. Something doesn't seem right. But I look in the side mirrors and I start making my way over. Then it hits me. There is no rear mirror. Ugh. I keep going and glancing all around. Now my head is on a swivel and I'm getting nervous. I make it over and stop at the nearest gas station. I decided not to waste a call to my son because what could he do at this point? I'm in this bucket and I gotta make it home. I get my water and go back to the car. I'm parked in a bit of a hill and start the car. Turning the engine on, the low fuel light comes on. I'm like, what? I just put $55 in the tank. I roll back slowly, mad, and the light goes off, and the needle returns to full. That's when I call. "Son, anything you want to tell me about the gas hand?" He says, "Oh, it never ran out of fuel, and sometimes the needle will dip, but it's all good." I look up at the sky and shake my head. "Tell my son I love you. Goodbye." He said, "Mom, I love you, and you got this." Like I'm not in a cautionary car driving over 200 miles home. Driving back to Tulsa, I smell smoke. I notice that a bit of smoke is coming from one of the speakers, which emit no sound since his radio doesn't work. I drive back to Tulsa on prayer, water, and silence. I'm exhausted. I made it back. My nerves have been on edge from no music, worrying, and just ready for my bed. My phone died near Henrietta, so I just hoped I didn't need to call AAA because I couldn't. I text my son after my phone is charged and tell him I made it home. I asked him about the smoke. His response was, "Oh, it did that again?" I asked him about the missing rearview mirror, and he says, "Oh, I haven't had one of those for about 4 months. It just makes you a better driver." Then he said happily, "Mom, you are a real trooper." I just laugh, say I love you, hang up, and put the covers over my head. Parenting is a ride, and sometimes you just gotta know which buckles to fasten and which ones to let go.
I have always loved learning things for as long as I can remember. As a Gemini with a heart of curiosity, I absorb little facts and stories about things and people like I used to collect rocks as a young girl. On a daily basis and always searching for more. As I've gotten older, I've grown to truly cherish my ever-growing collection. I have found meaning and joy in retelling my knowledge and lived experiences and listening to others share theirs. Because of this, Focus Black Oklahoma is a nexus of these interests that I am proud and grateful to be a part of. To get to both listen to and share meaningful stories is a dream for little me, and I look forward to whatever my future collection will hold. My name is Naomi Agnew, freelancer in TV and film in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and associate producer on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Focus Black Oklahoma is produced in partnership with KOSU Radio and Tri-City Collective. Additional support is provided by the Commemoration Fund and Press Forward. Our theme music is by Moffett Music.
Focus Black Oklahoma's executive producers are Quresh Ali Lansana and Bracken Clark. Our associate producers are Jesse Ulrich and Naomi Agnew. Our production interns are Alexander Evans, Jess Grimes, Roma Carter, and Anna Wilson.
You can visit us online at kosu.org or focusblackoklahoma.com and on YouTube at Tri-City Collective OK. You can follow us on Instagram at focusblackok and on Facebook at facebook.com/focusblackok.com. You can hear Focus Black Oklahoma on demand at kosu.org, the NPR app, npr.org, or wherever you get your podcasts.